Get ready to dive deeper in part 2 of our series. To maximize your enjoyment, consider checking out part 1 first, see link in description. Let's continue the adventure. Camping in the Woods Horror Stories, 3-part series. Part 2, Whispers in the Dark. Sleep had become a distant memory, replaced by a constant, gnawing fear. The package Liam received, the cryptic message scrawled in symbols that seemed to writhe on the parchment, had shattered the fragile peace we'd managed to build. The woods, once a distant memory, were now a looming threat, a malevolent force beckoning us back. Liam, usually the picture of bravado, was a pale shell of himself. The translator app's chilling message, "The offering is incomplete. You must return," echoed endlessly in his mind. We huddled around him, the flickering light of his phone casting grotesque shadows on the walls of his room. The symbols on the note seemed to pulsate, an accusation hanging heavy in the air. Days bled into one another, a suffocating silence punctuated only by hushed arguments and frantic searches online. We scoured the internet for anything related to the symbols, the language, or the message itself. Dead ends lurked everywhere, each failed attempt plunging us deeper into despair. It was Sarah, ever the pragmatist, who suggested revisiting the campsite. Maybe, she reasoned, we'd missed something, some clue overlooked in our panicked escape. The very thought of returning to the woods sent shivers down my spine. But the alternative, ignoring the message and facing whatever consequences awaited, was even more terrifying. With a heavy heart, we decided to head back. The drive was a tense affair, the familiar landmarks of the highway seeming alien under the weight of our shared fear. Reaching the clearing where our campsite once stood, a wave of nausea washed over me. The place felt different, somehow tainted. The remnants of our campfire lay scattered on the ground, a grim reminder of the carefree weekend that had turned into a nightmare. We scoured the area, retracing our steps, desperately searching for anything that could explain the message, anything that could help Ben. It was Liam who stumbled upon it first. Half buried beneath a fallen branch, near the spot where we'd last seen Ben, lay a small, rusted pocket knife. It was a simple, unremarkable object, yet it sent a jolt of terror through me. It was Ben's knife, the one he always carried with him. How had we missed it? Panic gnawed at me. Was this the offering the message referred to? Was Ben somehow incomplete? The thought was stomach-churning, but it fueled a desperate hope. Maybe returning the knife was the key, the act that would appease whatever entity lurked in the woods, the entity that had taken Ben. With a newfound resolve, we ventured back towards the abandoned cabin. The forest seemed to press in on us, the silence broken only by the frantic hammering of our hearts. The air grew colder, the sunlight failing to penetrate the dense canopy of leaves overhead. Each rustle of leaves, each snap of a twig, sent our nerves on edge. The cabin emerged from the trees like a malevolent specter. It looked even more dilapidated than before, the boarded windows seeming to leer at us with vacant eyes. A strange, metallic tang hung in the air, a smell that made my throat constrict. We approached cautiously, the floorboards groaning ominously beneath our weight. The interior of the cabin remained unchanged, the dust undisturbed. The gramophone stood sentinel in the hidden room, the cracked record beside it. Liam, his hands shaking, placed the knife on the floor next to the record. A tense silence followed, broken only by the ragged sound of our breathing. Then, it began. A low hum filled the room, a vibration that seemed to resonate in our bones. The air crackled with unseen energy, and the symbols on the walls pulsed with an eerie light. The gramophone needle began to twitch, a slow, erratic movement that sent chills down my spine. Suddenly, the record screeched to life. The guttural voice filled the room once more, this time tinged with a new urgency. It spoke in that same unknown language, the words cascading over each other. building in intensity. The cabin shook, dust raining down from the ceiling. Panic seized me. I lunged for the door, but an unseen force slammed it shut. We were trapped, prisoners in this macabre ritual. The chanting reached a crescendo, the voice twisting into a blood-curdling shriek. The floorboards beneath our feet split open, revealing a gaping chasm that seemed to devour the very light. A wave of nausea washed over me as I peered into the abyss. It wasn't just darkness that awaited us below, it was a swirling vortex of inky blackness that pulsed with an unnatural energy. Tendrils of shadow writhed within, reaching out for us with a malevolent hunger. Then, from the depths of the pit, a pair of glowing red eyes emerged. They burned with an intensity that pierced through the darkness, locking onto each of us in turn. A monstrous shriek tore from the pit, a sound that defied description and vibrated through my very core. The creature that emerged was unlike anything I'd ever seen in my nightmares. It resembled a skeletal hound, its body a twisted mass of bone and shadow, its glowing red eyes the only source of light in the abyss. Saliva dripped from razor-sharp teeth, and a low growl rumbled from its throat, shaking the very foundation of the cabin. Terror froze me in place, but Sarah, ever resourceful, grabbed a loose board and shoved it into the creature's gaping maw. With a shriek that sent shivers down my spine, the beast recoiled, momentarily distracted. Liam, fueled by a desperate fury, grabbed the remaining symbols from the wall and hurled them into the pit. The symbols glowed fiercely as they descended, momentarily pushing back the darkness and the monstrous hound. We used this brief reprieve to scramble toward the boarded-up window. With a collective heave, we managed to pry the boards loose, shattering the oppressive silence with a sickening crack. Fresh air flooded the cabin, a sweet balm after the suffocating darkness. We scrambled through the window, tumbling onto the damp forest floor outside. The creature's enraged roar echoed behind us, urging us to flee. We didn't need telling twice. We sprinted through the trees, adrenaline coursing through our veins, ignoring the tearing branches and the treacherous undergrowth. The forest seemed to mock our desperate flight, the gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Just when it felt like our lungs would burst, we emerged from the trees and stumbled back onto the familiar path. We didn't stop running until we reached the safety of the main road, collapsing onto the grass in a heap, our bodies racked with sobs. The encounter left its mark. Days turned into weeks, but the horrors of the cabin continued to haunt our dreams. We kept the incident a secret, a burden too heavy to share with anyone else. Yet, a silent pact hung between us. We would never return to those woods, never speak of the symbols, and never utter the name of the creature that lurked within the darkness. Then, one day, while rummaging through Sarah's attic, I stumbled upon a dusty leather-bound journal. The inscription on the cover sent a jolt of fear through me, the whispers in the woods. The journal, Sarah hesitantly revealed, belonged to her grandfather, a man who, like us, had ventured into those woods and returned forever changed. Opening the journal with trembling hands, we devoured its contents. It chronicled a similar story to ours, a group of friends, a strange light, a dilapidated cabin, and a terrifying encounter with an entity that fed on fear. But Sarah's grandfather's experience ended differently. His journal described a ritual, a desperate act to banish the entity. He spoke of specific items that needed to be gathered, a silver amulet, a raven feather, and a vial of moonlight. According to the journal, these items, combined with a specific chant, held the power to sever the entity's hold on the forest and banish it back to the abyss from whence it came. A sliver of hope flickered within me. Could this be the key to freeing Ben? Could we undo the evil we'd inadvertently unleashed? But a chilling realization followed. Gathering these items wouldn't be easy. It would require venturing back into those very woods, facing the creature again, and this time, not simply running away. It would require a courage we weren't sure we possessed. But for Ben, For the chance to erase this nightmare, we were prepared to risk everything.